Hi, boys and girls. Mrs. Copenhaver back with your next lunch lesson from Compass Mark. So, behind me, you will see our poster that we used in our last lesson together. And remember that we were learning in our last lesson about working as part of a group. And we said that members of a group can have one of four different jobs. The first being a group member. So everyone is a group member. You listen to what others in the group have to say, and you share your own ideas with the group as well. A group member could also have the job of collector. You can see behind me the collector. That's the person who goes and gets the supplies that the group needs to do the project that they're to work on. And then that's also the person that puts things away when the group is done with their work. So that's the collector. Then we have the recorder. Oh, let me move my head so we can see that. The recorder, that's the person in the group that asks the group members for their ideas for whatever the project is you're working on, and then they write down what the group comes up with. So what each of the members comes up with, the recorder is going to be writing that down on a piece of paper. Now, when all of that work is done, the recorder is then going to give that paper with all of those notes and the final project that the group came up with. It's going to give that to the group member that has the last job here, and that is the reporter right here. Reporter. That's the person who's going to talk about what the group came up with. So they're the person that's going to stand up and is going to share the finished product with everyone else. So that is what we talked about in our last lesson together. How you can have different jobs within a group, and by having people know what their job is, it makes group work a lot more fun and things get done a lot faster and easier. Okay, so today we're going to kind of build on talking about groups, and we're going to talk about how our community is a group. Think about the different communities that you participate in. Now, communities come in all different shapes and sizes, right? And a community is what? Do you guys remember? Because we did talk about this in a lesson quite some time back, what a community is. A community is a place where people can come together, people gather together to maybe work, play, live. So it's a place where people come together to do different things. Maybe you have family members who work. Their place of work is a job, that where their job is, that's their work community. That's made up of the people in the place where they work. Or how about your school? When you go to school, your whole school, that's a school community. And then even smaller than that, your classroom's like a little town in your school community, huh? And that's your classroom community. Right? Communities are also our neighborhoods where we live, right? And then, what kind of community do you have inside your home? Well, that's your family community, right? The people that you live with, that you spend your time with. All right. So, here's the neat thing about communities. Communities are kind of like a quilt. How many of you know what a quilt is? Do you know? A quilt is a special kind of blanket, right? Okay, for those of you who knew what that was, a quilt is a special kind of blanket. And a quilt is special because it's not just one great big piece of fabric. A quilt is made up of individual squares or even circles and different patterns of fabric made up of those individual pieces that are made and then all brought together and sewn into a great big blanket called a quilt. Now, the neat thing about quilts is that often, just like a community is made up of different people, a quilt is often made by a group of friends, so different people working together to bring all of those pieces into a finished product. So, and if just one of those people is missing, will the quilt be a whole blanket? Well, no, you'd be missing a piece. There would be a square missing. So that's what a community is like. It's made up of a group of a whole bunch of different people, and we each bring something to make that community whole. Think about your classroom community and when you were going to school. Do you remember all of your classmates who were there? Who were some of your friends and classmates, people that you sat in that classroom with and learned with your teacher? Did you notice when one of those friends was absent? Well, sure we do. That person wasn't there. They weren't there to share their thoughts, maybe to laugh and play and have fun with. So we notice when somebody is missing who's part of our group. We get to know each other. We get to know the things that each other says and does because we each bring something special to that community. Now, we also each have different jobs in a community, right? Let's shift gears. Let's think about our family community. Okay, so inside your home, where you're at right now, probably listening to this lesson. Our family is made up of a bunch of different people, right? And each family can be a little bit different. Like when I was growing up, my family community was made of my mom, my two sisters, and my grandmother and my grandfather. And then later on, as I got older, my nephew lived in the house with us too. So it was a big family. And it was an extended family. There was a bunch of us living under one roof. And we got used to each other. And when one person was missing, we noticed it. But we each had different jobs. My grandfather was a great grandfather. We loved him. He was a lot of fun to be with. What were his jobs? Well, it was being a grandparent, was being a dad to my mom. It was being the person that took care of repairs around the house. So he was our repairman. He was a gardener. He did gardening out back, and we helped out, did what he told us to do. He took care of the yard work. And again, we kids helped. He didn't do it alone. Okay, so there were a lot of different jobs and roles that he had. Now let's see, there was my grandmother. She was a grandparent as well, and she was a mom to my mother. She did childcare. She took care of myself and my sisters when my mom had to work. She was an excellent cook and baker. She made our meals, and she would bake fresh cakes and cookies and cupcakes and all sorts of things. She was good at canning things. That's an odd term, huh? Well, that's where somebody makes jams and jellies and maybe does things with fruits and vegetables to seal them in jars and keep them fresh. All right. She loved to do things like that. She loved planting flowers. She was great with gardens. So there were lots of different roles she had as well. As kids, our jobs were to make sure we were good students, that we were doing our schoolwork, that we did our chores and took care of our toys and picked up after ourselves. It was also important um, that we spent time and did what we were supposed to do, what we were told to do, that we behaved and we followed the rules. So can you see where we each had different jobs and roles? Well, our families kind of make up a quilt as well. And you're going to get a chance to do something really special if you want to take the time to do so. I want each of you to be thinking about your families and what a community quilt would look like for you. Who are the different people that make up your community in your home? And what are the special things that they bring? Now, sometimes part of that community quilt, when we're talking about our homes and our families, might even be pets who are part of the family, right? They have a job too, don't they? Their job is to keep us company, to put a smile on their face, to comfort us if we're feeling down or frustrated. So they have a job to do as well. So here's what you're going to get a chance to do. You're going to get to make your own community quilt for your family, for you and your family. And it doesn't have to be just people that are in your household. Think about the people closest to you, even if they're ones that maybe live in a different house, but they're part of your family that are special to you. And maybe you can include them as well. Now, I'm going to share with you a community quilt that I made for my family. Now, yours might have more squares than mine. Mine has 9 squares. So this is my community quilt. And I'm going to share it with you to give you ideas of what you might do, because each square in your quilt is going to have a person in it or a pet in it. And you're going to write words and draw pictures that describe that person and the role that they have in your community. So it's going to be things that they like, and also maybe jobs or things that they do that make them such a special part of your community, and why you'd miss them if they weren't there. So let me turn this around here so that you can take a look at my community quilt. Hopefully there's not too much of a glare on it. Let me hold my computer up like this. Maybe this will be a little better, so we don't get so much of the sunlight behind there. So as you can see, there's 9 different squares on my quilt. If we start at the top row, the 2 corners you will see have 2 kitty cats in them. Those are our family pets. One is named Snowball and the other is Mystery. Snowball's our older guy. He's about 12 years old now. But as you can see, I put up there meow, meow, purr. And Kitty Boo is his nickname, as you can see. There's some straws that I drew up there. Now, Snowball doesn't play very much with store-bought toys, but don't leave a drink with a straw in it sitting around our house, because the next thing you know, that straw will disappear. This cat loves to play with straws, and so that's why I drew straws in his square. And I put some hearts up there because he's a lover. He likes to lie down with people in the family, and he likes to rub on your legs and get you to pet him and things. So he's a lover, and he loves to sleep. So that's our Kitty Boo. That's Snowball. And you'll see I wrote more meows than purrs on his because he's a talker. On the other hand, Mystery on the other side there, we call her Kitten Girl. She's our newest little member of the family. She's not even a year old yet. And she loves to play with strings. She loves to play with bottle caps. So, yeah, don't take the lid off of your drink and leave it sit, because that'll disappear with her. And she's a lover as well. And you'll see I wrote more purrs in hers than I did meows, because she doesn't talk as much as Snowball, but she loves to purr. In the middle, up in the top, that says Brian. That's my husband. I wrote in there when we got married. You'll see a laughing emoji. He loves to laugh and play jokes and have a good time. He's a father. He's a husband. He's a brother. He's a hard worker. And he's a son. So those are jobs that he has. Now you'll also see some numbers and like what looks like math problems written in there. He used to be a math teacher. Now he does a different job now, but he loves math and he loves numbers. In the middle row, you'll see it starts on this side with Joshua. Then there's me in the middle, Mrs. Copenhaver. And over here it says a name probably you've never heard before, but it's Fedor. Joshua and Fedor are my sons. So you'll see Joshua likes things like lacrosse. He's going into the 10th grade. He's a brother. He likes sports. He's a son. He loves his friends. And he loves listening to music. All right. On the other hand, Fedor, who is his brother, he just graduated this year, so no more school for him. He's eventually going to enlist in the military. He loves hiking and climbing, and he enjoys spending time with his friends, and he's a brother and a son. For me, in the middle there, I put down that I'm a wife and a mom. I'm a teacher and a daughter. I love reading and going to the mountains. Christmas is my favorite holiday, and autumn is my favorite season. The very bottom row, now these are people that don't live in my house with me, but they're just as important as the ones who do. That's Bonnie and Tammy are my sisters, and Joyce, well, that's my mom. So I put things around them that describe them as well. Whether it's that they love a certain kind of animal or all animals, they like reading and cooking, maybe watching movies on television. So can you see how I created my community quilt for my family? Each person in this quilt has a special role in my life. Okay? And that's what communities are all about. They're made up of lots of different people that maybe like lots of different things and have many different jobs and skills within that community, and we miss them if they're not there. Knowing these things about each other also helps us build our relationships with each other and communicate and get along and work well together as a community. So I want you to take time between now and our next lesson to think about your family community and to make your own family community quilt. And guess what? It could even be a fun project to work on together with your family. Maybe you can get yourself a piece of poster board and you can draw squares on there, as many as you need, to make up your family quilt. And each member of the family could design their own square. That would be a lot of fun, wouldn't it? It would be a great family project to work on, especially if you get a rainy day or a day that's so hot outside that everyone wants to stay inside and stay cool. So think about that and have fun with it. You can come up with any design you want, but remember that unless you have all of those quilt squares, the quilt is just not whole. All right. Well, boys and girls, thank you so much for being here with me for today's lesson. And I hope you learned a little bit more about how your community is like a quilt and the special place or role that each member of that community plays. And I will look forward to seeing you next time for our next lesson together, which we're going to be starting a new topic. And that topic is talking about bullying. So tune in for our next lesson and let's see if you learned something new about that topic. All right, talk to you later. Bye, boys and girls.